Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter with the theme of Mental Health Mondays because it's Monday. And I apologize for coming on late, a little bit late. We had a last minute change in the episode for today. And my guest, unfortunately, was sick, but I didn't really know till last minute, but that's okay. You get me today. Yay, always exciting. I know you're super excited. Well, if you haven't watched the show before, please make sure if you're watching this on YouTube or any of the streaming platforms like E360 TV, on the Achieve TV channel, Roku, Apple, wherever, I don't know, wherever you're watching it, make sure you hit down that subscribe button or the follow button or add this to your favorite playlist because every single guest that I have every single week is incredible. And I am just very blessed to have these amazing people that want to come on the show to help me make mental health matter, hence the name of the show. What I thought about today, I was like, well, I could probably do a rerun, but then that would probably take you back, way back on Mental Health Mondays, which is not a bad thing by any means, because some of the episodes, even in 2021, were some of the really great episodes that we had. We've had lots of guests who are either professionals in the mental health space, mental health advocates, they're either coaches, holistic, or those that experience or live with a mental health challenge. And I truly believe that those are some of the really cool shows because we get kind of the behind the scenes, a life in as a person that is experiencing a mental health challenge or going through hard times and potentially having suicidal ideations pop up. And I think it shows just humanity in general. It shows that none of us are perfect by any means. And that's what this show is not about perfection. It's just really about getting the information out there. And on Wednesday, I always say we. Well, I think it's because I always have a guest. And so I'm always thinking I have a guest and me, and it's a we. However, I am the host. If you haven't met me before, which hopefully you have if you're watching this, but my name is Kelli Melissa Reinhart. Formerly, my last name was Hansen. I got married last July, and so changed my last name, which usually happens with marriages. And so it's been a little interesting talking about the last name thing, how I was going to present myself, because I have a lot of media in the past. I also have this show, which again, I've been doing Mental Health Mondays since 2021. We just recently, last month, switched over to this platform, which is the E360 TV and Achieve TV channel, which goes out to lots of different places. And so as we were making that switch, I was like, okay, am I going to go by my maiden name? Am I going to go by my married name? Am I just going to go by my first and middle name? I don't know. It was this big struggle within myself to figure out what I wanted to go by. And I decided a couple years ago to add in my middle name, which whenever somebody says my middle name, which is Melissa, I immediately, and maybe you can relate with me on this, but I immediately, when I hear my full name with my middle name, I think of my mom yelling at me like, Kelli Melissa Hansen, come here. And that was kind of a trigger at first when some people, and then they won't see the Kelli in front of the Melissa and they'll call me Melissa. I don't know. Most of my life, I was called my sister's names anyways, because my mom happened to name all of us with K's or C's. And most of the time it was like, whatever your name is, come here. And my mom and my dad also have C's and K's. The whole family pretty much, except for one of my sisters. And so it was always a struggle with the name thing. So I'm used to being called somebody else's name, but when I hear the name Melissa, I get a little triggered in a way. I don't know if it's a trigger, it's just an emotion like, oh no, I'm going to get in trouble. And I do that with my son now, calling him by his full name, but it's not the same. There's not the same emotional attachment to it. And my husband and I were actually talking about this the other day because I mean, back in the day, right? Like we are always as parents doing the best that we can with the resources that we have available, and it was acceptable to spank our children. It was also acceptable, not necessarily to beat the crap out of them, but to spank them, punish them. That was the thing, I guess you could say, that would happen back in the day. What we have seen over time, really, like my generations and the generations older than I am, is that it did create some trauma. And interestingly enough, it is something that some people hold on to, like it's like their blanket. Like they're holding on to, well, my parents spanked me or my parents did this. And really, it is, I mean, hitting anybody is not nice by any means. Also, spanking is not the greatest way to punish or show, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, show dominance? I don't know if that's the right word, but we're rolling with it. Show that you are the parent versus them being the kid, right? So there's a lot of things that come up around this for people in general. And I didn't even know this is where we're going, but this is where we're going today. But interestingly enough, we were my son, my husband, and I were all out. We went out for a walk yesterday. We went to Chipotle and we were all sitting there. And my son happened to bring up spanking. And it's not something we do at all in our house, other than joking around, but never in a mean or harmful way. And so I was like, well, it's a good thing that you have really great parents that don't spank you. And he's like, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, because you could like be chased around the house and they could hit you with a belt or even a hanger. And I was like, a hanger? I'm like, where did you get that? Of course, it came from YouTube. So, note to parents, be aware of what your child's watching. I know that my son, these things come in and he's going to see them, but having the conversation around it is the important part. So, we had a conversation about what he watched. And I was like, okay, so you saw that on YouTube, but that's not something that mommy and daddy does. And he's like, yeah, no, I know. And I was like, that's really lucky that you have parents that don't spank you. And he's like, yeah, because that would really hurt. And so we had the whole conversation around, well, back in the day, like myself and daddy both used to get spanked. And, it did like one of those things, like my middle name, right? One of those things that create an experience. But I also, something that comes up in my brain is it also inside me gave me respect because I knew that I needed to respect my parents. I knew that they really were, again, doing the best that they could with the resources that they had available. It's usually something that you learn and or I don't know, like people talk about. I don't know. So I don't know what the right words there are, but going back to the name thing is that every single time I would hear Kelli Melissa, I always had that little trigger behind my head saying, oh my gosh, you're going to get in trouble. And so when I dropped my last name altogether at first and just went by Kelli Melissa. And I found that the most of the time people were just calling me by Melissa. And that's not my name. That's not what I identify with at all. I actually have never gone by that name. You could call me Carrie, Kayla, Candy. You could call me any of my family members' names, and I would respond to that. Anything with a C or a K, I just roll with it because that's how our family was. So even if it's whatever your name is, come here, I will roll with that. However, the M or the Melissa is not something that I identify with. And so when I say identify with, that's our identities. That's what we go by. If you think of famous people like Beyonce or Ellen or Lady Gaga or trying to think some other, Oprah, those people that go by one name, we have come to identify that person by the one name, and it doesn't really make a difference. That's just what their brand is. Well, this was something that I had to consider when I was considering changing my last name to my husband's and how that would play in the role of business. And it's something that most all women go through if you've been in the, say, public eye, or you already have created a brand around your name, around your business. If you think about businesses like, um, gosh, I'm trying to think of one that was like really that was changed pretty drastically. Well, it's now Well Power. So they changed their name. I just forgot what it was changed from. Well, all right. See, now I know it by Well Power versus what it went by. Bonfils Blood Center is another example, and now they're Vigilant. Don't know how to pronounce the name accurately, but they did a name branding or a name change. Who else has? Well, I don't know. I mean, it's just how you create this brand. I have considered with BCC evolution, it means nothing about mental health or suicide prevention. And I have oftentimes throughout the past 5 years considered changing our name. Our logo or our tagline is Make Mental Health Matter. We started with the tagline of Suicide Sucks. So we've had a couple taglines here and there. We also have, so these are Love Life shirts. So the Love Life You Matter on the front and back. Here I can actually, I'll bend this down a little bit so you can kind of see. So these are our other, so Love Life, and then on the back it says You Matter. So we have a lot of taglines within our company in general, but oftentimes BCC evolution, they're like, what? Yes, it means nothing about mental health or suicide prevention, but the part of it that's really fun is that we can talk about what it means. And if you don't know yet, I love telling this because it's my story, but also I don't even know why, but BCC came from originally blind carbon copy email. So when you send an email out and you can BCC a whole bunch of names, nobody knows who else is there. You can't even respond to all the people and know who else is there. And that's kind of how I looked at mental health, is it's there, but you may not know it's there. And that's where really the original BCC came from. It also came from a partnership that I had back in the day that didn't end up going the direction that I thought it would be as far as the partnership, which is totally okay. So one of the B and one of the C's belonged to her and her family, and then the other C was my sister Carrie. And so that's how BCC kind of came about. But I also thought about that email and the blind carbon copy email, and I was like, hey, that's kind of how mental health is. It's there, but you never know who else is there. And our ultimate goal is to get those people off that line where they feel completely alone and bring them to the two front so that they feel understood, heard, and seen. And that is really the whole goal of BCC evolution and what we do through education of mental health and suicide. And that's the branding. You're like, where are you going, Kelli? Branding. It's the branding around BCC evolution as a whole. It's the branding around me as the founder. Whatever my name is, it doesn't really matter. And so coming back to the name thing, was I talked to quite a few people and men in general, and they're like, I mean, I would just assume that you got married. I was like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. And then I've seen a lot of women shift from their full name into first and middle and just go by that. I just found that I didn't identify fully with just Kelli Melissa, and it triggered me every single time somebody just called me Melissa. Although I know that's my middle name, I just don't respond to it. You could call, like I said, you can call any C or K name and I would respond. Melissa just isn't one that I respond to because it's not my name that's ingrained, other than getting in trouble when I was younger. And so it's interesting as you start to think about branding companies, branding your name, branding your identity. Like, what does that look like? Will you identify with, say, that one name, like Oprah, Lady Gaga, Beyonce, Rihanna, right? Will you have a hard time when you go, which is what happened to me, when you go to fill out the information and it says first and last name, and you automatically put your actual first and last name, but then you're like, wait, I go by my first and middle. Is this a situation where I put my regular name or do I put my middle name? And that was just getting really confusing within me. So the shift happened. I am now, as you know, going by my first, middle, and my married last name, which feels good to me. And that's what's important. So if you ever have a time, women, men too, men also, sometimes men take their wife's last name, or if it's a LGBTQ plus couple, then sometimes they make or formulate their own last name, which is the identity of both of them, which I think is really, really cool too. I know some straight couples that have done that. I know some gay couples that have done that. So it's totally up to you. Like, what's in a name? And if you really start thinking about that even more in layers and details, there's a lot when it comes to a name. So if you happen to go through that experience as a person, as a human, getting married, or maybe you're shifting to a another name for business purposes, like a writing name. I think they call them pen names. I don't know. Then you may have to consider that. So consider what feels good for you and know that it will be the perfect decision, whatever you decide. So that kind of went in a different direction than I thought. We're going to take a quick break, commercial break here, and I'm going to come back with a shift of information as to what we're going to talk about. right. That was a lot of lead in into what I really wanted to talk about today. And but before I go into that, I just want to share, so that commercial that you just saw, I actually made that commercial, which I was pretty proud of myself. And also, we are still looking for commercial sponsors. What does that mean? Do you have a company? Do you have a organization? Do you have a business? Are you a coach? Are you somebody who is looking for a way to be able to market your business or market you as your brand or your identity? And you don't really want to put it on national TV because it can get really, really pricey. So maybe you want to put it on a show like mine. Maybe you feel like you align really well with the Make Mental Health Matter show, and it's not nearly as expensive to advertise on my show versus a national show. So reach out to me at support. It's support at bccevolution.org over here. Send me an email. Let me know that you are interested and want to get more details about becoming a commercial sponsor on our platform. If you don't have a commercial yet, it is something that I can help you create that commercial. Also, like I said, I created that last one, and it's definitely an add-on thing that we do. We are looking for at least 1 to 3 sponsors because we have this show, and then we also have Warrior Wednesday show, and it's only a 3-month commitment. So if you know anybody, you know a company, or you are that person and you want to sponsor the show, please send me a message or just get more information. All right. So let's talk about what I really wanted to talk about, because I don't really talk about what I do specifically other than BCC Evolution. There has been shows in the past that I really deep dived into what is BCC Evolution? What do we do? Why do we do what we do as a mental health and suicide prevention education? Well, suicide prevention nonprofit with education as our main focus. However, I do here and there, if you've caught it, maybe you haven't. I talk about what I do otherwise. And if you watched last Wednesday, you would have heard from my really great friend, Beth, who is also a neuro linguistic programming coach. I myself am also one. I specialize in trauma, depression, anxiety, any other mental health challenge, or suicidal ideations. Why? Because what I have found over time is that, like I was talking about earlier, is we have these triggers. We have these triggers, whether it's our name, whether it's a place that we go, maybe it's an experience, a sound. It can be so many different things that take us back to a time or place when we were little, when an event or a situation happened that, again, we locked into our memory. And if it was traumatic enough, maybe our brain automatically shoved it down so that it protected us from having that information bubble up at any point in time. Because maybe we're somebody who doesn't want to relive the experience that we went through. However, we would absolutely love to move through it so that it doesn't affect our now, our present moment, or who we are today. And I believe I've talked about this a little bit, but for me, the reason why NLP was the modality that I chose to get my practitioner certification, then my master practitioner certification, then I got my trainers and my consulting certification, and I'm currently going for my International Coaching Federation certification. Why, Kelli? Why are you doing all of these levels? Why are you continuing to level yourself up in NLP? Because it helped me. It was the one and really only thing in my life that completely changed everything for me. And I'm serious when I say that, like everything. So I ended up going to this event. Well, so reverse a little bit. My sister passed February 20th of 2017 by completed suicide. And that whole first year, my coping mechanism was just going, 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 going. That's how I coped. That's how I thought I needed to cope. And I knew that I needed to be strong for my family, or what I thought was that I needed to be strong for my family. I needed to be the one that took care of everything. My son was really, really young. He was only a year and a half old. And I had to be the rock of our family for whatever reason. I took on that responsibility. So for me, going to work, constantly staying busy, of course, with a one almost 2-year old, it was, that's kind of your whole life. That's what you do. And so I was going, 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 and hit what I call a virtual or a brick wall, if you might say. And it was something super small, super simple, but it was that trigger for that moment that I lost it, like completely lost it in the office with my supervisor at the time. And he was like deer in headlights of I'm not really sure what to do with this information, and it's really a small change. You might want to consider taking some time off. And I was like, that'd probably be a good idea. So luckily, I did work for a corporation at the time. I was able to use our employee assistant program, which is EAP, and they offered 10 free counseling sessions, which was amazing. So I utilized those free counseling sessions. Went to a counselor. It was all right. Probably not the one I would have chose to stay with long term. Got me through what I needed for that moment. And that's what I needed, was to just be able to just talk in general, because I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't grieving. I was just coping. I was surviving. I wasn't really truly living. And when I got to that point and I hit this brick wall, I realized that something had to change, but I didn't know how to do that. So I went to the counseling, did the free sessions. I took about, I want to say 6 weeks. So I took like the full amount of time that I could off and went back to work. And one of my really amazing friends, she grabbed me and says, "Hey, I'm going to this event. You should come with me." It was called The Greatest Year of Your Life, with my friend, George Carroll, who used to run it. I was like, yes, I'm going to go to this motivational thing. It's going to make me feel great. It's going to be awesome. And the whole first day I was bawling. I'm like, what? What just happened? Why am I sitting here bawling my eyes out? The first thing that we did was this process that was called the day you were born. Ultimately, you go back to the day that you were born and you see what you see, hear what you hear, and feel what you feel. Well, all of mine really centered around my sister. So my sister was there. And one thing that I didn't realize that I needed the most was to have her in this moment, to be able to forgive her and forgive myself. I didn't even know that was something that I needed, because I was holding on to so much, like my blanket, like I was saying earlier. Like I was holding on to me needing to be strong, and the what I call now the shoulda, coulda, woulda, houlda, voodoo, we do's of, well, should I have said this? Could I have noticed something? Why didn't I know that she was struggling? Why didn't I see that she was going to complete suicide? Normally, in the past, when she had attempted 6 other times, we knew there were warning signs. I could at least like partially tell that something was happening. But when she finally completed, I had no idea. I actually had called her that morning or the morning before because I asked her if she could watch my son, and I didn't get a response. But I didn't follow up, and then the next morning, we found out that she was no longer with us. And so for me, like, I literally was, like, holding on to that, like, why didn't I see it? Why couldn't I have changed the outcome? Why did this happen, right? But in that moment, when I was doing this process, I was able to see her and forgive her, which is really, really powerful. And being able to forgive myself. Then all of a sudden, all of that pressure that I had put on myself just went away. And that was the most pivotal moment that I can go back to that really ultimately helped shift and change things. Move forward, I was like, wow. I mean, 3 days full of things that broke me out of my comfort zone, things that I was able to shift and change just over the 3 days was, like, incredible. So in my mind, I was like, "I need to learn more about this NLP thing." Like, what? So I took the 2-day class, which was a couple months later. It was an intro to NLP. In that moment, I was not somebody who really spoke up as much. I was more introverted, which is weird if you think about me now. I was a lot more introverted. I do tend to sit back and watch before and observe and figure out like how I can add value into the conversation before I just jump in. But during the 2-day, there was what were called hot seats. And it took me a while to muster up, but I knew exactly the event and the situation that I needed to change. So my son had had seizures. His first seizure was in it was like September or October of 2017. 2017? Nope, 2016. Yep, 2016. So, it was like September, October 2016. He had 6 seizures in an 8-hour span. They couldn't find anything, did blood work, did CAT scan, and nothing. They did it EKG, nope, ERG, nope. I don't know. The brain waves. Apparently my brain's not working either. ERG, electronic. I think it's ERG. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. So they did the brainwave scan. We'll just call it that. The brainwave scan. Nothing. Couldn't find anything. No idea why. Scariest thing I've ever been through in my lifetime. Fortunately for me, my sister was still alive at the very first episode because she was in the medical field and could be there right with me and help me through what was going on and explain to me all the things that the doctors were doing because as a new mom, I was freaking out and I didn't know how to help him. And that is one of the worst experiences that you can go through as a parent. It sucks. So I knew that that was a situation that I needed to change because then my son actually had a second episode of seizures on the day of my sister's celebration of life. He had 3 seizures in a 3-hour span actually before her celebration of life. So I was able, he stopped seizing and I was able to leave the hospital. My husband now, but he was my boyfriend at the time. He was there with my son and was able to stay. And I went to my sister's celebration of life. I did my speech. I shook hands. I remember most of the people that were there, not quite all of them. And then I left and went back to the NICU where my son was to spend the night. And so I knew I paired two traumas together, like locked them, and it was ruling my life. Ultimately, making or manifesting fear in my body, the fear of losing somebody else in my life. And that's what was happening. And I would literally, without knowing, so this is all happening unconsciously, I would push people away, even my own child. I was getting angry. I was so mad all the time. Every single little tiny thing set me off. I mean, I talk about it now. I went from 0 to red in 2.5 seconds. A simple thing that a 1.5-year-old would do would trigger me, and I would get mad, so mad. And I do, like I said, I talk about it now, like it was border child abuse because I didn't know what was happening inside my body. I was unconsciously living in this fear, and I had to make a change. I couldn't consistently go through life being fearful. I didn't know it was fear. I just knew that I was mad. I knew that everything made me angry, and I didn't want to be around anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't know how to show love. I was just pushing everybody away. And I mean, interesting that my husband stayed with me through this time because I think I was pretty I don't think I was that nice during this time. So I went and did this 2-day NLP event, and I raised my hand for the hot seat and I said, I need to do this. I know the moment, I know the event that I need to change. Thankfully, I was able to go up. It was a big class. So I was picked, which was awesome. And I went back to the first event, the first episode of seizures, because that was the most that he had had and the most traumatizing to me. And what I found was that fear. That's what it was. It was the feelings of fear, the feelings of sadness, the feelings of not knowing what to do. And I changed them. I was able to drop down with my unconscious mind into that event and change that. And instead of it being fear and sadness and being scared and worry, I shifted it to curiosity. Curiosity? Okay. And rolled with it. I, being a skeptical, was like, I don't know if this stuff works. I don't know if it's even going to make a difference. So I went home that night after an emotional day, learning all of these new tools, which were super, super cool. And I went home and was like, I don't know, I'll just notice what I notice, see what happens. And that night, I promise you, like literally that same night, I was up in my son's room and he was doing something in the past that would have triggered me, and it would have set me into that red zone or the rage or the anger, those emotions. Instead, I sat there and I looked at him like kind of like a dog. Mm, mm. And I was curious at what he was doing. Looked around, I was like, wait, curious. Does this really? One day, one session, one day, one session. Really? It's going to change everything that fast? Okay, I'm not going to be the one that was like, push it away, push it away. No, I'll just go with it. I'll roll with it, see what happens. And it shifted. It started shifting my whole entire world. It was single events that were locking me into the fear, into the patterns, into the sadness, into all of it. And I was able to shift that in 1, 2, 3 days, really 3 total days of learning this weird thing called NLP, or neuro linguistic programming. Okay, cool. Well, if it can do that, and I've seen all the other people that it's been able to help, I have to learn more about this. So, what do? I register for the practitioner training over 9 days. Amazing. Wow, this is so cool. Well, okay, what am I going to do with this? Now I have to do the master practitioner because I want to learn all the advanced skills. That's another, how many days is that one? I think it's another 9 days. It's been a couple years. Another 9 days straight. Oh, that puts so much more together. Oh, that's why we do that with that process. And oh, this is a really cool process. I've got to learn more. I want to be a trainer. Why? Because I want to be a speaker. Never, ever in a million years did I ever think that speaking on a stage would be what I want to do. Let's explore it. Let's see where it goes. So I jump in and do trainers and consulting, which was 14 straight days, residency up in Winter Park. Incredible, away from my family, but absolutely life transforming. Wow. All of it comes together. That's why we do this. That's why we do that. This training made me a better speaker and made me more aware of how it can really truly help people. I learned a lot of that in prac. I learned a lot of that in master. But trainers getting to that level, wow. Wow. Not everybody makes it to that level. So building skills, all of these things. And what's going to set me apart from all the other coaches in the world out there? Because as you may have noticed, there are a lot of people that are claiming to be coaches. And don't get me wrong, they may be amazing at what they do, and that is wonderful. But what's going to set me apart? How are they going to know that I really value and I have an experience and I have the training to back me up? How are people going to know that they can trust me? How are they going to know that I'm going to be able to guide them? And this journey is going to be theirs, not something that I force them to do. It's for you, not for me. But you know that you can trust me and you can know that if I'm not the right fit, I'm not going to take your money. I'm going to actually refer you on to somebody else. Because the cooler part is that I now have a network of coaches around me that are also NLP coaches. And every single one of them are phenomenal, just like myself. And they all specialize in different things, which is really cool. So maybe I'm not a fit, and that's okay. But maybe somebody else in my network is, and that's cool. So I had to find a way to set myself apart, and that's why I decided to now add the extra level of the International Coaching Federation certificate, which I should be done by this summer. But the coolest part of all of this, remember we were talking about branding earlier. Branding your business, branding yourself, getting that trust. People like to buy from people that they trust. They also like to buy from people that they like. They also like to buy from people that they identify with. And so with all of these tools and all of these resources that I've just brought all together, which ultimately a good chunk of everything that I've learned has gone back into BCC evolution. But I finally found the confidence the value, the being of worthiness, being of worthiness, being worthy, being valuable, being confident in my abilities to help others. And that is the most powerful thing, along with this awareness of people in general. The words that I say to myself, the words that I say to others is really, really important. And I think that goes to everybody. What you say to yourself and what you're going to say to others really, really matters. And I catch myself now with the words that I use because I have more choice. I have more wholeness in my life. And that is really, really cool. And when I'm able to give that back to somebody else, somebody that's really struggling, somebody that may be going through a really hard time, somebody who has had anxiety their whole entire life, maybe they've been living in depression or experiencing depression, and I am able to open up a safe space to be able to have the conversation that they need the most and to just be their guide. I don't have to have all the right answers. You don't have to sit there and talk like talk therapy. You're really using your own resources inside yourself and allowing your unconscious mind to bring up or investigate within ourselves what is keeping us locked, what we're holding on to like that blanket. Because I know in this world today, there are more people struggling with their mental health than we ever in history seen in the past. And unfortunately, resources are not available as needed. The mental health space, the professional mental health space is inundated. So people are finding alternative ways to help their mental health. I just saw a study on the news yesterday, but they're turning to negative coping mechanisms like alcohol and drugs and those things that just mask whatever you're going through. There are a lot of ways to be able to naturally move through whatever mental health challenge you are going through. NLP is one of those ways. So if you are somebody who is struggling, you're living with or experiencing depression, anxiety, trauma, suicidal ideations, or some other kind of mental health challenge that you think that you and I might be a good fit, reach out to me. Again, on bccevolution.org, over here, there is a page that is called programs. I'm like, which page is it? Nope, it's not that one. Who can help me? My apologies. So on here, it's who can help me. And I am on that page. I also will be adding a lot more coaches. I keep saying that, but I did a whole bunch of updates this last week, which is awesome. And I'm going to continue to do them this week. So if I'm not the right fit, all you have to do is schedule a call with me. Your first call is free to see if we're a good fit. And if we are, amazing. If we aren't, that's okay. I really truly try to find what is going to be beneficial for you. And like I said, have a whole network of NLP coaches that I can refer you to. So if I'm not the right fit, I can absolutely pass you over. And or if you need a professional who is licensed, who takes insurance, things of that nature, we can have that conversation too. And so I am all about just helping others, whichever way makes sense for you. So reach out if that's something that you need. And NLP is for anybody. You never know what's locked up in our unconscious mind and how we can move through it. But the best part about it is I don't need a whole lot of context. You don't have to live in that trauma. You don't have to experience exactly what you experienced. Or maybe you have a situation that you know that you need to change. We can also work on that. Or maybe you just have a goal in mind in the future that you want to reach, like buying a house or making so much money. Maybe your goal is to make $1 million. If there's a goal in mind, we can also work on those. It doesn't necessarily have to be just trauma, depression, anxiety. We can also set and work on a goal so that you actually achieve it and it's not just a thought in the back of your mind. And isn't that cool that we have this tool to be able to have more choice and more wholeness in our life? That's right. I think it's pretty cool. So reach out to me, jump on BCC Evolution. Again, bccevolution.org. Go to the Who Can Help Me under our resources. And I am on there. Click on my name and find the space to book a call with me. And let's see how I can help you. That is where I was going today. If you want more information, if you want a little bit more understanding, go back to last Wednesday where I had Beth on my show and we talked a little bit more about it. I know I have more guests coming up that are also in my space and in my little circle that I'm going to have on as guests, which will be really awesome too. But I hope that this information was helpful. We all experience things differently. My experience is going to be very different than your experience. And so we have lots of different ways and modalities and things that we can give to ourselves to be able to get unstuck or change whatever pattern or belief that might be holding us or locking us in. And that's pretty cool, isn't it? All right, y'all. Another great episode. Join us. See, I have lots of friends. Join me this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for the theme of Warrior Wednesdays. And if not, then join me back next Monday at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time for the Mental Health Mondays. And as always, be sure to add us to your favorites, click the link for subscribe, or just follow us and send this information to anyone that you feel like it would be helpful for them. Thank you so much for watching Make Mental Health Matter. I truly appreciate you. Have a wonderful day.